I'm Lloyd Holiday, and this is the Cost of a Thing podcast. Thanks for listening in today. So what happened to that great standard of living that we used to enjoy here in America in the 1960s and even into the 1970s? Well, that's what the Cost of a Thing podcast is all about, and that's what I'm going to be talking about here. Okay, today I want to do another podcast on how it was to live in the 1960s and 70s, and I take little topics and compare how it is today in 2021 versus how it was back then. And today's topic is the news media, the news and the media in the 1960s and 70s versus that of today. And it is like night and day. And it's such a big difference, you can't even believe it. The news back then, there were no 24-hour news networks in the 1960s and 70s until cable came in. And that's when Ted Turner created CNN, Cable News Network. That was the downfall for all of us. And that's when news went from being actual news to being propaganda and annoying opinion, 100% almost. So let me tell you how it was when I was a kid in the 60s and how the news was then. You had newspapers, okay, those were there. And I think they were mostly news. I didn't remember, I was a newspaper boy back then, and I'd read the newspaper. I was the first one to get it. And when I was folding the papers, I'd read the front page. And, it looked like mostly news and not a lot of propaganda. Now, maybe there was some in there, but I just saw the news, as it went down in the 1960s. Now, for television, there was no 24-hour-a-day, 7 days a week news network. At 6 p.m. on the three main channels, you had CBS, NBC, and ABC. They're still around today. They're a lot different than they were then. They're still here. And at 6 p.m., they would do a 30-minute national news. And you'd pick whatever channel you were comfortable with or who you liked as the anchorman. They had Walter Cronkite. I believe he was on Channel 2. That was CBS at the time. A lot of people watched him. The other channels had somebody equally as famous. And that was it. A half an hour. They'd tell you the news. They didn't have time. There was no opinion. They did not tell you their opinion. I never saw it. I just saw them telling the news. They didn't have time for opinion. They just put that half hour in there and it was done for the day. I don't remember it on weekends. I think it was just Monday through Friday, that half an hour. So you had about 2.5 hours of news a week versus now, what do they got now? 24 hours a day, a bunch of channels that have 24 hours a day. They got somebody on there at 3, 4 in the morning talking about something. You can tune in at 3 a.m. and you'll have some fresh guy or gal in a suit rattling off the latest propaganda, rehashing the same tired ideas. And most of it is opinion and propaganda, of course, today. And they're trying to get you to agree or to go along with their thinking. Or they're trying to change your opinion or whatever, or reinforce your opinion if you're already of a like mind to them. So if you can imagine, no 24-hour-a-day news. It's unbelievable that was the way it was. And it was great. It was great. I wish that would come back today. I wish that's the way it would be. I long for that. It was so great. 30 minutes, it was over. And then with commercials, it was probably only like 20 minutes. You had to listen to these guys. And they tell you all the major stuff you needed to know. And if you wanted to know more, you go get a newspaper and read a little bit more about it. And that was it. It was great back then. I loved it. And the old statement, no news is good news, really holds true. And I think the less news, the better. The less of this kind of news we get today. And really, there just isn't enough real news to fill in a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week show on 10 or 12 different channels, all doing the same thing, each with another clone anchorman. The array of anchormen they have, they all look the same, anchor women. The less news, the better. And guess what? Not only the news was only 30 minutes, but TV itself had an end at the end of the day. They would broadcast, and I'm going to put it up there. This is what they would show after about midnight. But they just put this thing up there, this little Indian headdress thing. And that's what you'd see if you turned on the channel. There was no all night, all day TV, 24 hours a day, everywhere, every minute. And that was great. There was an end. They shut it off and they went home. Can you imagine if we did that today? How wonderful that would be? Well, instead what I do is I shut it off. I don't watch much TV anyway. And I certainly don't watch the quote news. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up, and I just wanted everybody to know that it was great in the 60s and 70s when they would actually just tell the news, and that took up about 20 minutes a day, and that's all we saw. And that was plenty of time to hear what we needed to hear. And believe me, if I could bring that back today and get rid of what we got now, I certainly would do it in an instant. And I think the great majority of the society would be much happier getting rid of all these propaganda channels, opinion channels we have now. Thank you for listening in today. And until next time, this is Lloyd Holiday signing off.